Okay, and now it's time to say good afternoon, everybody. And it's time for our final plenary session, which takes around the world, which is MSP Around the World. And I have a pleasure to give this session over to a person who is a GIS specialist with more than 20 years experience in geographical and information science field with a focus on data and database management, programming, automation, cartography, and map making. She has worked in different industries and with different technologies such as land asset management, survey and cadastral, maritime boundary delimitation, data and database management, disaster and emergency management, fire and safety, emergency rescue, and finally, community safety. So please welcome from Department of Blue Economy in Seychelles, Mrs. Francesca Adriane. Please, floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this session for MSP Around the World. We will have 3 presentations from Uruguay, Russia, and Japan. And the presentation will follow the 10 steps of the UNESCO guide. So first, let me welcome all the speakers. And I'll also pass on for them to introduce themselves and just give a brief introduction where you work, what you do, and how you've been involved in MSP. Thank you.
Well, my name is Alberto Gomez. I'm a lawyer. I work for the university. My background is in environmental law. I work in University of Uruguay in an interdisciplinary group. And, well, we are working in MSP maybe 3 or 5 years ago. We started with these things. Well, what we are going to show you today is what we do as a research about the activities in our sea and our river we share with Argentina.
Thank you. So next we'll get the other one, Miss Larisa Danilova, please.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. I'm Larisa Danilova from Russia, St. Petersburg. I work in the Scientific and Research Institute of Maritime Spatial Planning, Yermak, Northwest. We deal with MSP now for a few years. I'm a member of Helcomba Sub MSP working group and of expert subgroup on data for MSP for Baltic Sea region. And mostly we work in some international projects, took part in few flagship projects in the region of Baltic Sea, and in previous year we started work in the Black Sea and with the group on strategy of blue growth development. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Danilova. And then the last presenter will be Professor Yukita Michida from Japan.
Thank you for the introduction. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Firstly, I'd like to extend my sincere appreciation to the organizer to allow me to be here. And it's my pleasure and honor to join this kind of workshop. I'm working at University of Tokyo as a professor for the Atmosphere and Ocean Research Institute. My background is physical oceanography, but I have been much involved in the marine policy in Japan recent days. And I have been also involved in the IOC activities over the last 30 years, and including previously I was one of the vice chair of IOC, from the 2011 to 2015. And then I was the co-chair of the International Oceanographic Data and Information Exchange, IODE, for 4 years until this year. So with regard to the MSP, I'll make a presentation later, but the Japanese MSP is premature, and I like to promote the MSP in Japan as the member of the Japanese Society of Marine Policy. Thank you very much.
Thank you. At the beginning, I I forgot to introduce my MSP experience. So I'm from Seychelles, and we are currently almost completed doing the planning for our MSP. It is quite an ambitious project because we want to protect 30% of our marine space, and we are almost there with 28%, and the goal is to get it all done by the end of next year and to get it implemented at the beginning of 2021. I am also a member of the technical committee, the strategic committee, and also a member of some of the working groups involved in the planning of the MSP. So we'll get started. We'll get Dr. Gomez to
What's this one? Thanks everybody to be here, and especially thanks for the organizers for giving us the opportunity to show our work for you. Well, as I say, my background is in environmental law. I'm a teacher from the University of Uruguay. What I show you today is teamwork made by interdisciplinary work that we led by Luciana. The first thing is, what I want to show you is some geographically where is Uruguay, and show you that we have two parts of coast, right? One is the Atlantic Ocean, and the other one is shared with Argentina. It's the River Plate River. So we have two different conventions regulated our sea. So I want to show you later. Well, the first thing that the organization asked for us is in defining and establish authorities. Well, the authorities, we put here some, what we thought that more interesting authorities or commission that we are doing things in Uruguay to try to regulate the different parts of each zone, right? Here you can see this is the River Plate, and here you can see the both conventions, one up the other. The River Plate, the convention of the River Plate, and the UNCLOS convention. The most, I mean, I thought that the UNCLOS convention is all known for you. Most interesting thing is the convention with Argentina. It's this zone, right? This convention starts in the 70s, in the 1970s, and it's kind of MSP instrument. The instrument regulates different zones, right? If you see a TR, PF, this one is the convention with Argentina. The convention the convention makes some different zones, right? As you see, the cross, the line cross all the river, and we have an area of common fishing, other regulation, maybe how do you do as a country to try to do some activities in the river? No? You must ask for the other country. There's a commission who administrates the whole river. That's, I think, the most interesting. That's it. This one is just to show you how we show these things in class, and how we try to try to in classes to show where the different zones and different regulations. Talking about institutional articulation or institutional things, we are from the university, right? So we don't have power to get real plans. So what we do is try to enforce by researching, right, and try to put these topics on the table, on the political table. What happened recently is our government started to interest in these things, and you can see, well, this is a kind of process. Now the government is creating a new institutional table with the different ministries, and now we saw they are started to think in MSP like a political, political country, right? Here, well, another thing is this one, right? How financial this work. Well, this different thing, right? We are from the university, so we are not only 3 or 4 people with our works in the university, and there's what the government thinks and how they will try to get some resources, well, including the private sector and all of you can see there. This is the team now we're working, the university team that I belong, and some people from the government, from the different agency. What we're thinking about in time, in the short time, we are thinking in expansion the universal factors, make a kind of methodology course, and try to start regional contact with Argentina and Brazil. Well, in a way to, in medium time, try to generate an MSP national strategy, and this one framework of another national marine science program. And in a long time, what we will try to do is a regional MSP strategy with Argentina and Brazil. What we see is multiple organizations working in the same places, with competition one up of the other. With limited investment capacity and not enough human resources. That was another risk. Well, engaging stakeholders. Here, this is the last law that the government do. Here, as you can see, they started a working group with the whole of the Minister of Education, Foreign Relations, Defense, Transportation, everything. But they started to work in this group, and in this group they can invite a representative of local government and universities, so that way we can be there. Well, that's what I'm most interesting to show you is our research work. Is this one. Here you can see what we do well. First one is this step is analyzing site conditions. So how you can see here it's the relevant habitat, right? You can see different habitats, and we zone it and we put in maps. Here you can see the different activities that we can put here, right? Well, ports, oil exploration, dredging. That's the whole activities in our sea. Here you can see the whole activities, one up the other. It's just to know how they interacted. Here, what you can see here is how these activities can how these activities can be compatible each other, right? So there's some activities that they can do the same, both activities in the same place, but there's another activities that's not possible, right? So here there's in red the not compatible uses, in yellow, sorry, the probably compatible uses, and in green the compatible uses, right? For example, I don't know, fish and oil rigging, all this kind of interaction, right? Here you can see Well, it's that the thing is there's one, here you can see how the interactive, the activities with the ecosystems, and in this one is how interactive activities between the other activities, right? It's another, it's a different thing. But maybe, well, you understand, that's not the same. Well, about the action plan. Well, as I said, we are from the university, so we can the power to get a real plan. This is something that the government has to do. What we think is try to, as I say, try to enforce, try to put this topic on the table, and well, you have here. There's two action plans, right? This one is the government plan, and this one is our plan. No? Well, the government plan, as I said, they start to make a kind of big office, involve the whole minister and all of this stuff. And what we are trying to do is in education on courses. We try to make more try to involve more actors, stakeholders. And what we are trying to do is, well, we are invited now to participate in this new commission. We don't have a plan now in Uruguay, so these three steps is just theoretically what we are trying to do in the future, right? Implementation, evaluation, well, as you know, the way. I think that's all. Thank you.
And now we will invite Larissa to present her.
And how to? This one, okay? Thank you. Okay. I will start with the first step in defining needs and establishing authority, including legislation. As you know, Russia borders 12 seas belonging to 3 oceans. One of it is enclosed sea, Caspian Sea, and the Pacific Ocean too. That's why we ratified a lot of conventions, we have a lot of international obligations, and so on. We started with MSP in 2010, when HELCOM and WASAP actively started work in this direction, and Russia was involved in the work of the MSP working group of HELCOM and WASAP. And in 2013, the Ministry of Regional Development of Russian Federation was identified as responsible authority to Russian MSP framework formation. But in 2014, after the fact that Ministry of Regional Development was reorganized, these responsibilities and functions were distributed among other ministries, and MSP framework development was referred to the Ministry of Economic Development, and MSP Studies and International Cooperation to the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment. On the moment, MSP framework is not in place, and Russia don't have law on MSP, but we have few pilot projects that I will show you on the next slides. Obtaining financial support. That is a challenge, of course. Financial support is arranged for national pilot projects, scientific and analytical studies, and for example, in 2012, MSP Toolkit was developed with the support of the Ministry of Economic Development. That was World Ocean Program. Then pilot management plan for the Barents Sea was supported by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment, according with the presidential order. It was in 2015. Pilot MSP for the Gulf of Finland by the same ministry was initiated as a part of a trilateral Russian, Finnish, Estonian program of the cooperation Gulf of Finland 2014. It was finalized in 2015 year. And of course, we try to use international MSP funding and support, such as Interreg, Bonus, CBC programs, as well as Horizon 2020. Since Russia has not yet started national MSP officially, its principles, goals, and vision are mainly based not on the national framework, but on international documents. And for the Baltic Sea, these documents are agreed by HELCOM and WASAP ministerial meetings and adopted by Russia. Such an obligations, the most general of them are the Baltic Sea Action Plan and Baltic Sea MSP Roadmap. In accordance with these documents, Russia should adopt a law on MSP and develop a maritime spatial plan for the Baltic Sea until 2021. The main risk is that neighboring countries, Finland, Estonia, Poland, Sweden, Lithuania, are finalizing their MSPs now, and without Russian MSP can't effectively discuss cross-border issues. You can see here on the picture one of the illustrations of Baltic Alliance project that show that the main shipping ways are going through a Russian area in the Baltic Sea. And of course, we need to take part in these international consultations and somehow discuss, is it okay for us or is it not okay if some country is changing these shipping ways, for example. And we have, in practical, now we have these problems we have now in our practice. What about stakeholders? State, regional, and municipal authorities in judging will become fully effective on the stage of official MSP, of course, when the national framework will be in place. Then they would be responsible to communicate and provide data and information, and MSP would affect their interests. Sectoral stakeholders and coastal population, regional legislative assemblies, they are more involved and open for dialogue now in the pilot projects and pilot cases. In Russian case, we have a good experience of stakeholders' dissemination and involvement with participative tools. We arranged a lot of workshops, conferences, and we use such a tool as interactive games. For example, our institute, Yermak Northwest, produced such a game. It is interactive simulation MSP game, If I Were a Decision Maker. Analyzing existing conditions. Of course, we have a lot of scientific organizations, universities, and so on, that accumulated a huge amount of knowledge on environment and natural conditions for most marine areas of Russia. Specialized institutions and organizations are involved in the gathering, study, monitoring, and analysis of the data. The problem is that the data is not fully prepared in such a way to use it for MSP. And our second problem is that sometimes the data is not opened. It is private or sectoral data, and we can't use it in pilot projects, of course. I show here quite good example for the Barents Sea. That is the project of WWF, and they produced integrated spatial analysis of value and vulnerability of biodiversity for the Pechora Sea, and mostly it analyzed oil production and existing and plant protected areas. It is made with Mark-Sang tool. Future conditions. Future development of marine use is adopted on the basis of the relevant integrated and sectoral federal and regional strategies. For example, it is strategy of port development, of energy infrastructure development, transport strategy, and so on and so on. The challenge is that such strategies in Russia have a horizon of from 3 up to 10 years, usually. And MSP is based on long-term spatial scenarios up to from 20 to 30 years. It should also be noted that forecast for climate change is taken into account up to 21, oh, sorry for my English, please. Preparing and approving the plan. Russian pilot MSPs include zoning and proposals for restrictions of prohibition of certain uses. Pilot plans for the Gulf of Finland and Barents Sea provides management measures for regulating marine activities and some recommendations or proposals for the marine sectors. New Pan-Baltic platform project capacity for MSP, Interreg, should develop Russian MSP roadmap. This project only starts, and its kickoff meeting will be today, back-to-back with this forum. Our work in this project, two Russian institutes participate. That is my institute, and I'm proud to say it today here, Yermak Northwest, and the second institute is Russian State Hydrometeorological University. The project is supported by the Ministry of Natural Resources and Environment of Russian Federation. Implementing the plan. Currently developed Russian MSPs are of a pilot nature, so they are not unofficial documents. Now we have two options how to develop Russian MSP in future. One part is that MSPs will be included into regional schemes of terrestrial planning, and the second option is that MSPs will be developed as separate binding documents. Evaluating. Environmental monitoring is carried out on all Russian seas. System of indicators takes into account the specific conditions of each sea. Observation points are defined, of course, but Russia don't have monitoring program for assessing MSP if we don't have MSP on a moment. And my last picture, how to adapt the process. First is to start, then to go, and then to adapt. And now we're starting. Thank you.
Thank you, Larissa. And last, we will ask Professor Michida to.
Okay, thank you again, and good afternoon again. I'm Yutaka Michida, talking about the Toward MSP initiative in Japan. Toward, that means the MSP activity in Japan has been far behind from where you are now. So we are now in the preparatory and in preliminary stage. So just to share with you the situation in Japan toward the MSP initiative in Japan. And we adopted the basic act on ocean policy adopted in more than 10 years ago, which is described our basic ocean policy in Japan, that not included the MSP at that time. But the basic plan on ocean policy renewed every five years, and the latest version was adopted last year, and that stated that MSP has been mentioned. Briefly, one sentence as the potential solution for the better management of coastal waters. And also the preparatory stage, Japanese government revised the port law and the fisheries law to adopt the MSP kind of activities with regard to the law, the regulations. And basically, of course, after the earthquake 2011, the Japanese society has a strong trend for the marine renewable energy, like the wind farm, the offshore wind farm, the coastal wind farms. So this is the basic background for the requirement of the MSP Japan. But it's not easy for me to apply all of my presentation according to the steps, the 10 steps, but it's like related to the each steps. And financial support, it's not started yet, so the potential supporters are like this. But my expectation is possibly the UN Decade of Ocean Science will be one of the very good trigger to raise the funding for the maritime spatial planning in Japan. And before starting the marine spatial planning in Japan, nothing happened. No. Yes, several things we have already carried out. First one is the governmental level, it's not happened yet, but at the academic sector, we published kind of the guideline for the local government people to be referred when they try to organize kind of the consensus development activities for the marine renewable energy development. So by digestion of the guideline published by UNESCO IOC, we also added one or two aspects based on our research activities applicable to Japan. And this is the diagram for the 6 steps of our guideline, published in Japanese only, but it is also already prepared. And with regard to stakeholders, of course, the engagement of the fisheries sectors are quite important, because you see look at the map here. I think you don't have enough geographic information, knowledge about Japan, but it's close to the Tokyo Bay down there. And then here is the scale, 6 kilometers. This is 6 kilometers, very small area. But these all areas with the polygon shows the kind of the fisheries rights area. So almost every area has been covered by fisheries rights. So the fisheries engagement of the as a key stakeholder, the fishermen group. And this map has also been developed as one of the preparation. So with regard to the current stage, the importance of maritime spatial planning has been gradually recognized in Japanese society, including the government. And as I shown before, this map was prepared through the MDA situational indicator linkage, which is a kind of infrastructure, data and information infrastructure for the maritime spatial planning in Japan. So the MSP itself has not been developed yet, but with regard to the information, or basic information and data infrastructure has already been ready, right? And MDA, Maritime Domain Awareness, usually used as a kind of national security wording, but it is not the national security version. MDA situation indicator linkage is full open. You can access not only from Japan, but also all over the world. So you can click you can check the situation indicator linkage. You can see this kind of map in the English version. So, and also the potentially significant needs of MSP with a strong trend toward the marine renewable energy. Lot of potential activities around Japanese coast. There's so many the plan we have now with regard to the marine renewable energy, like the wind farm. And one of the key points for us is UN Decade. Yesterday we discussed about how the MSP can contribute to the UN Decade, but my point is the opposite side. You know, UNDCAD, the Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, they have the 6 societal outcomes. They are all applicable. MSP can be applicable to all of the societal outcomes. So in this the context, I'd like to try to raise a discussion in Japan based on the UN Decade of Ocean Science implementation planning, and MSP is one of the key outcome tool for the UN Decade. But the situation challenging is now at the governmental level. It's not very active so far. I'm not sure the reason, but there is so many. We had so many the big project previously, 20 years ago, 30 years ago. You may know about the big bridge between the main island of Japan and the Shikoku Island. At that time, they have carried out a negotiation with the fishermen, and eventually they were successful to get the consensus to promote the bridge construction. So in this sense, at this moment, the Japanese government people will not be very positive to promote the MSP so far. But the MSP can be raised. Maybe next month we'll have the discussion meeting at the advisory board for the National Basic Act Ocean Policy. I was invited to be one of the speakers for that. I raised the point and then try to promote MSP in Japan. And with regard to the scientific part, the scientific research on oceanography in the transition zone between the coastal zone and the offshore zone, it's not easy to make the research because the different scale of the dynamics and also different scale of the phenomena. So in this case, we have already started this project with as one of the basic science for the MSP in Japan. And these 3 steps, we are now still in the premature stage in Japan. So these steps, so after once we adopted or we started the MSP activity in Japan, I'd like to share with you later on again this kind of the part. So you can see the right-hand side the photo. This is one of the world longest the suspension bridge, right? It is called the Akashi Bridge between the Osaka area and the small island of the Awaji, but it's the longest one. It was constructed 30 years ago already, and at that time no MSP at all, but they got the consensus case-by-case approach. But now the situation has been changed because we have already a lot of potential activities around Japan, so we have to have the MSP as the more systematic ways for the consensus development in Japan. Thank you very much.
I think now that you've all presented your country's progression in MSP, I think we should open the room for some questions, or should we use the questions from the? We'll just use that one. All right.
May I ask a question? I'm sitting over here. Okay, it's a question to Ms. Danilova. You started by saying that it is a pity that actually Russia ideally should have an adopted MSP plan in 2021. And it's a pity that the neighboring countries have not, so to say, enough taken into consideration the Russian counterpart in their plans, as I understood you. And you also said that you are starting now on this process. Then I'm wondering what, if, for example, the projects Baltic Scope and Pan-Baltic Scope has been going on for 5 years or something like that. And I wonder if there was an offer or some contacts with Russia to be partner in these projects or participate in them during that time.
Thank you, this question. Maybe my English is not so fluent. Because I didn't say that our neighboring countries are not taking into account Russian vision for how to develop MSPs and how to develop some line infrastructure and so on. I said that Russia don't have MSP, and that's why it is difficult for our neighboring countries to deal with it, yes, and that is problem for us in our dialogue. We have, in last years, we have few international consultations with Poland, with Finland, with Sweden, about their MSPs. They presented their MSPs to their neighboring countries and to Russia among them. I took part in them, and I can say that it was very well organized, and we have enough information from them. And what about Pan-Baltic Scope? We took part in some activities of Pan-Baltic Scope and of Project Baltic Lines too. And we know what is happening in neighboring countries. We know their plans, I can say now. And when we will have our mapping and our plans, of course, the dialogue will be in place. Thank you.
Okay, maybe you can say, were Russia offered to be partner when Baltic Scope started? Maybe someone else.
Why not?
No.
Why not? Yes, of course.
What is driving force behind MSP in Latin America? Well, as you know, in Latin America now, there's maybe bigger problems. So, for example, in our region, sometimes political instability make that is complex to arrive to a new instrument, legal instrument between the different countries. So any country, at least they try to do what everybody did. Sorry, excuse my English, but any country, as I know, they do what they can. And the most support of these topics came from Europe or from United Union, or all of this international support. That's the situation now. We are waiting for a more peaceful region, maybe in some years, and they can start to talk with our neighborhood about a regional MSP, regional strategy. Another about from my countries, something about cultural heritage. Yeah, we don't taking part in this one, in this research. Cultural heritage. We have a law about cultural heritage in land, but it's not a really important topic now for the government or for any social community. So it's a thing that doesn't have enough enforcement.
So, can we say that one about the shipping route?
For the Arctic shipping route? Yeah. Okay. Very nice question. But a little bit sensitive. That is the question of sectoral nature of planning system in Russian Federation. All our seas are under federal responsibility, and the shipping sector have only strategy for port development. But we work in this direction, I can say, and I hope that realization of capacity for MSP project and development of Russian MSP roadmap will help us to organize dialogue with the stakeholders in Arctic zone. And then we will have what do they think about all this. I know that WWF is very active in promoting MSP for Arctic zone. We're in contact with them. We're in contact with the governance of those who develop Arctic shipping concept now. I hope it will be a successful process. Thank you.
Professor Michida, the one about the seismic
Sure.
versus
Okay.
the MSP.
Yeah, I hope I could capture the question. The seismic activity in Japan. Yes, of course, we cannot avoid seismic activities, right? And then we have been having a serious discussion on regarding the how to make the land space coastal zone more resilient. But with regard to the offshore investment, I think there have been no negative influence with the seismic activities around Japan, because we cannot avoid it. And then the coastal zone area, like how to evacuate the tsunami, and also how to protect the tsunami, how to protect the coastal zone from the tsunami impact. In this sense, it is very important. But with regard to the offshore investment, like wind farm energy and other kind of minings, and in this case, my understanding is there is no negative influence on that thing.
So the other question, I think all three of you will be able to answer that one, which I was going to ask you is you all, obviously all your country has the will to produce an MSP, but obviously you have issues. So what do you think is the main issue? Is it because finance, you don't have enough staff, political will, or what are the issues that's stopping you from progressing further or as fast as you would have wanted?
Well, in case of Uruguay, obviously financial issue is one of the limits, and the other one is we have not enough experts in those things. But, well, in the other hand, now we have the government interested in this. So, well, I thought that financial and not enough staff could be a limit, but it's not, nothing is impossible, right? You can find money or whatever.
As for my opinion, and I'm more familiar with Baltic Sea, of course, the problem for Russia is not in the financial or in the staff. Our problem is that for MSP development, effective development, you need to have conflicts, spatial conflicts of marine sectors on the marine area. We don't develop offshore wind energy. That's why we don't have so many conflicts in marine area. And that's why we are not so fast, so active in MSP. I'm sure that our staff is really excellent, and Russia have enough financial possibilities to make MSP. Thank you.
Okay, with regard to Japanese situation, that the Japanese land space is very small, in comparison with the other countries like Russia. Right? My understanding, the land space of Japan would be 60th biggest in the world, but the EEZ area maybe it be the top 10, maybe within the top 10. So in principle, it's not easy for us to cover everything, the coastal zone. It's the much wider area in comparison with land space. But with regard to the implementation of the MSP in Japan, as I mentioned in my presentation, it is not yet decided who should pay and who should take care of the process implementation of the MSC. One idea is from the private sector, we ask the investment or donation to promote coastal zone management. This is just an idea and not yet get consensus. So I understand the problem, but I'd like to share with you. Your experience would be very helpful for me. Thank you.
Somehow the question is on Seychelles, I'll answer. MSP in Seychelles at present, we are still in the planning phase, and we are at the stage now where we are trying to create the legal framework to make it, to be able to implement it. So in terms of vulnerability to the sea rise, obviously that's a thing that's at the back of your head when you're, and it's quite important for us because, as you know, about 4 or 5 years ago, we decided to adopt the blue economy concept. So MSP is that tool that we're using to make sure that the marine space is used sustainably and the human activity doesn't affect the marine environment because we have such large amount of it and our land space is quite small. So the MSP will help because it will change the mindset of people, how they use the marine space, because there will be areas where they can't fish, they can't have any human activities. So it will get people to start talking and say, well, wait a minute, yes, the space is there, but we have to use it in such a way that 20 years, 30 years down the track, we still have those marine environment that obviously attracts the tourists to Seychelles, and also the research, because we have such diverse ecosystems that obviously some of the spaces have not even been identified yet. And I know you've heard of Necton that came to do research cruise last year. So that was quite interesting because they discovered some new species. And so MSP is very important for Seychelles because we want to protect more of the marine space, and going with the MSP is the best tool for us to be able to do so. Oh.
Well, about beyond national jurisdictions. Sorry? You say lawyer.
I can talk on that one. I can't say why it is important. Seychelles is also involved in another MSP, which we just started with Mauritius, which is in the ABNJ. We have a joint management area, which is the extended continental shelf. So we have just started to come up with the plan for the MSP for that region. But obviously, because it's in the ABNJ, we can't do any management for the water column. We can only do the seabed. So that will be a process that it will be a learning process for us because we've always had MSP in the EZ. So maybe 5 years from now, I'll have some answers. Thank you.
Okay.
I think that's a wrap. I would like to thank all of you for participating. We've heard 3 different types of commitments for MSPs. I wish you all good luck, and let's hope by the time we meet again next year, you'll have more positive news and progress, yes.
Thank you very much. And your packages are arriving, so thank you, gifts. There you go.